Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Matchbook Cheltenham previews. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. Slightly later this week, given the February bank holiday, the first ever February bank holiday of the Dublin Racing Festival, Micheál, Deasy, which was perfectly timed. And you watched all the racing from Portugal.
I did. I was watching Saturday's racing sitting in the sun in Albufeira Old Town. It was fantastic. United on the telly winning as well. And great day.
Manchester United are back. He keeps telling me. Matt Toombs, you watched pretty much all the races from start to finish. Is there one particular highlight you have standing out from the 2 days of race?
I think it might be El Fabiolo. That's probably going to be the strongest novice chase run anywhere all season, I think, the Irish Arkle. And he was brilliant. To take a field like that, Dice Up Dino, Appreciated Banbridge, and win by so far. He's a bit of a chancy jumper, which will make it exciting in the Arkle itself. But I thought that was an absolutely outstanding performance.
Yeah, I agree. And I was at Leopardstown on the Saturday, and the excitement before that race was definitely the most of the whole day. I mean, the buzz around the place before, during, and even after the race. I know it didn't have like a grandstand finish, but El Fabiolo was so impressive. And Banbridge was one of my strongest fancies of the day. I actually started laughing and said Banbridge actually got up for second, and none of the lads believed me beside me because I actually made sure to watch the finish, and he did get up for second somehow. But obviously, he won't be an Arkle horse, unfortunately, this year. He's definitely going to be aimed towards the Turners. But plenty of Ante-Post movement. We're going to cover the Ballymore. Sorry, no, we're not. We're going to cover the Brown Advisory. We covered the Ballymore last week. Brown Advisory Novices Chase. The guys have a couple of strong fancies here. If you are watching the show and you do want to get involved, we do have a competition. Head over to our YouTube channel. Comment on the video with any feedback for the show, any kind of questions for DC or Matt you'd like to ask, or any nap you have for Cheltenham. Do get involved in the YouTube comments. We read them all and we'll reply to them all as well. We'll get into the prices first, guys, before I bring you in. The Brown Advisory Novices Chase, currently on Matchbook. Jerry Colom, impressive winner at Sandown. It's a 4.0 favourite. Thyme Hill at 7.0. Sir Gerhard and the Real Whacker are both 7.2. Gallier de Menil is 9.4. Gentleman's Game is 21.0. The Devil's Coachman, 26.0, and it's about 40.0 and bigger the rest. So, Matt, before we get into maybe selections on this one, talk to us a little bit about the trends. What type of horse does it take to win what was the Old Broadway?
Yeah, this looks a weak renewal and a fair bit weaker than the Arkle and Turners. Assuming Mighty Potter doesn't run, no horse has run for a Racing Post rating more than 160 so far. To give that some context, 6 of the last 7 years, the top rated on RPRs was between 162 and 170. So one horse, to me, who looks the antithesis of what you want for the Broadway is Thyme Hill. I can't have him at all. If he wins, I'll need to be researching some new trends for next year, as he's going to break just about all of them. I picked out 3 of them in particular. The first one is that you don't want to spend too long over obstacles. Since Young Hustler won 30 years ago, all 90 horses that had had 2 or more full seasons over hurdles have been beaten. Staying chasers need to get chasing as quickly as possible rather than putting miles in their legs and staying hurdle races. Secondly, this century, all 11 Quarto Star winners have been beaten, but 5 horses beaten the Quarto Star have won. That's a completely different test. And thirdly, since Garrison Savannah won in blinkers in 1990, all 31 runners in headgear have been beaten, only 2 of which were placed. Thyme Hill won the Quarto Star in first-time cheap pieces. You want a horse with a real appetite for chasing here, not one that needs headgear to motivate him. And as well as his profile, can't rate his form either. He had 3 serious rivals in the Quarto Star. Jelena Bello fell, Galia de Lato lost her confidence, pulled up, but fabulous finish lane. And Tom O'Brien said afterwards he thought Thyme Hill found jumping easier in the soft ground than the good ground he struggled on in the Worcester. So he might be ground dependent as well. I imagine that on the day, he'll be one of my biggest lays of the week. And I'm almost as keen to take on Sir Gerhard, who had a setback going to Cheltenham off 1 chase start and a poor 3-runner beginners at Gore in over 2 miles. Jumped out to his right the first half of the race, blundered at third. He did jump better as the race progressed, but he's very inexperienced for this, going straight to the festival. And even though the smaller fields and typically a steadier pace these days, this is still a tough race for novices. A meaningful chasing experience is crucial. And the record of the 6 horses who run in the Broadway this century off 1 chase start is Commercial Flyer pulled up, he went off favourite. Back in front, unseated, Goulanes was 6th, Jeffrey Chamberton 9th, Alison Monker pulled up, and Dickie Dive was 59 lengths 4th. So I imagine Sir Gerhard, if he does line up, I'll be laying him for a place on the day. I think this is going to cut up badly. With 2 horses near the front of the market, I can't have at all. I think there's plenty of Ante-Post value to be had.
Yeah, but interesting on Time Hill and Sir Gerhard, if you do play slay them both, but there may only end up being the 8 runners, but maybe 4 or 5 quality ones. So it's maybe you're saying a lot of these lays, Matt, it's just wait on the day, see the field for those sort of place lays when those place markets come up.
Absolutely. And I still think a lot of people are thinking the fields are going to be bigger than I think they're going to be. And therefore the prices at the moment on horses like Time Hill still will shorten. On the basis he's definitely going to run, assuming he doesn't get injured, I still think he will shorten a bit. So I don't want to lay him now. I want to wait until the
Yeah, and looking even the National Hunt Chase, there's going to be a small field there too. So there's plenty of still value Ante-Post if you do find a lurker in the market and a guaranteed runner, some of which we'll get into later on. But Deasy, talk to us about the favourite here. This is a horse that you are going to put up here, and it's a horse I'm going to put up here as well, Jerry Colomb. Just how impressed were you with that win over Sandown? Because I thought going into that race, I backed under rock myself that the good ground would catch him out.
Oh yeah, I was fairly sure when he went over that he was going to win, and I think it was very clever placing by Gordon, and I think this horse has been campaigned very cleverly as well for this. As Matt was saying about this race can really take a chunk out of horses. If you go back over the years, there's a few of them, like even just looking at the recent winners, like they come out the next season and they're not quite the same. You know, it's a really tough race, and Jerry Colomb has been brought on slowly enough this season. You know, he ran twice over hurdles there last year. He won on Stephen's Day in a short price, and he won a Thurles in January, and he was heading for the Albert Bartlett because Gordon said that he needed the maximum trip. Made a setback and was put away for the season, and I think that was probably a good thing. He has won 3 times this season. He's never really destroyed a field. His biggest winning distance was 4.5 lengths there on Stephen's Day when he beat Adamantly Chosen, but he's won it all fairly comfortably. There's no issue stepping up in distance. If you look at his sire, there's Bristol de Moy, Alpha Les Obo, and Discorama by the sire, and the Dam sire then had long run and big bucks, so they all stay. I thought it was a very classy performance at the weekend. I thought he beat them easily. Balco Coastal is probably a good handicapper, but I thought he was going away from them. And if he'd gone the full 3 miles, I'd say he would have absolutely destroyed him. He said, and just I think everything is in his favour. As Matt said, you look down through it. It's definitely not the best renewal of this race in the last couple of years. There's been a few small fields. Hopefully we might get 8 or 9 in it. But I think he's a fair favourite. I think he'll probably go off shorter, and I think he'll take a very good horse to win or beat him.
Yeah, not often myself and Deasy agree on a Cheltenham Ante-Post video, but I just couldn't really get away with Jerry Colomb. Like everything Deasy said in terms of how he's been campaigned, his unbeaten record, obviously. And I guess because he missed a lot of last season with hurdles and he's been brought around slowly, there maybe isn't as much of that hype about him, perhaps, if another horse was unbeaten the way he is. So yeah, what was putting me off was maybe a Willie Mullins last minute switcheroo, but just given the entries he has, unless he supplements a horse here, Sir Gerhard is going to go here without another run. So I would probably be a little bit worried with that, like Matt has touched on. So I expected it to be a little bit shorter than 4.0, to be honest with you. And I can see him going off as a well back to maybe 2.5 to 3.0 favourite. Of course, there'll be money for Sir Gerhard, who really, if he does end up here, will probably go off second favourite as well. But I think Jerry Colomb is the most likely winner, and he's the most likely to go off favourite as well. So definitely one for me at about 4.0. Matt, you are a fan of the horse overall.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anyone off him. As you say, the way this is going to cut up, I think he'll go off a fair bit shorter. The only reason I'm not making it a full house for him is because I think this is going to cut up so much. I do think it's got the right shape to try and find something at a big price that you're not sure is going to run, but take a bit of a punt, just because the price wouldn't just shorten, it could collapse.
Yeah, that's definitely a lurker perhaps in the market. And you've a couple of horses you were thinking about putting up. One you are going to put up, and one you're going to give an honourable mention to. So just talk to us about the thought process about this next horse that you're going to put up for us here, Matt.
So the one I'm going with is Ramillies, who's 30.0. He was my dark horse to follow when we did the jumps to follow at the start of the season, when I thought he might be best over intermediate trips. He'd been 20 lengths 6 in the Albert Bartlett, looming up coming into the straight but fading. And I thought that might be a lack of stamina, but it may have been he was soft trained as a novice hurdler. Willie said chasing was always going to be his game. And the previous Albert Bartlett's been a good guide to the Broadway, run as a 6 from 28, over 100% profit. And they finished 1P1, 4P1 in the Albert Bartlett. So it's produced Broadway winners from those well beaten in the Albert Bartlett. So I'm open-minded regarding his trip, but he's been first past the post in 2 chases over an extended 3 miles at Thurles and then 3-1 at Naas. Neither have been strongly run enough to be sure about his stamina, but I'm getting more encouraged 3 miles could be his trip. And what I like about him is that there are good reasons to suppose he should improve a fair bit on the form he's shown so far. That's because he's a notoriously hard horse to get fit, but he beat a race-fit Tenzing at Thurles, similarly style to Jerry Colombe had done. And then despite Willie having said he needed a sound surface, so we'd be kept away from tracks like Navan and Naas during the deep winter, he lined up in that 3-mile 1 grade 3 at Naas at the end of January. The ground was soft, not desperate, but after what looked a good piece of race riding by Paul Townend to me, I thought he won a shade cosily idling close home. Stewards disagreed, reversed the placings, but the promoted horse at Devil's Coachman's a really talented mudlark, jumped better than he had done. Form looked strong with Am I Right comfortably seen off in 3rd. So if he gets a sound surface at Cheltenham, I think Ramillies is likely to step up a fair bit again. The problem is working out whether he goes to the Broadway or the Not Quite 4 Miler. He's in the same ownership as stablemate Gaillard de Menil and also Nicky Henderson's City Chief. I'm not expecting City Chief to go to Cheltenham at all. They're talking about Ayr or maybe Aintree for him. So I think it is a straight split with Gaillard de Menil and Ramillies, 1 Broadway, 1 the Not Quite 4 Miler. And Willie said the other day that for some reason, you need a horse with lots of chasing experience for the Not Quite 4 Miler. And with Patrick in his ear to ride the vastly experienced 2nd season novice Gaillard de Menil, my hunch is that that's the way they'll go. Gaillard de Menil, the Not Quite 4 Miler, Ramillies in the Broadway. I wouldn't be confident. We're in proper Mullins bingo territory here. But unless I've misjudged what's going to line up, if Ramillies does run, I can't see him going off any more than, say, 10.0, and he might be shorter. So I think he's well worth chancing because I think there's a decent chance he does run, and if he does, he's got a realistic chance of winning after his price could well collapse.
I was kind of smiling when you were talking because I was playing Willie Mullins big last night looking at the Ante-Post markets, but I was focused on Gaillard de Menil now maybe will run in the National Hunt Chase, not thinking, wait, if he runs here, what happens to the Brown Advisory? So yeah, definitely can see Remy as if he is declared here as a Willie Mullins horse, is perhaps the 2nd string in the race going off a lot shorter. So Deasy, your thoughts on the rest of the runners there, maybe a bit of the Remy as the Real Whacker I thought was interesting. If he does go here, he's got the course and distance form, I guess, but also there's talk perhaps he might go to the Gold Cup too.
Yeah, you were saying there before we went on that you thought the old trainer had no glint in his eye about the Gold Cup when he was doing his interview with Tom Stanley. Okay, he's wouldn't say he's a bit of an unknown quantity, I suppose. People wouldn't know a lot about him, but he was very impressive in his win the last time, and I think they would probably be better off running him in this rather than going for the Gold Cup. But again, it's not something I'd be having to bet off at 6.0. You look down through it then, like as we said, how many of these are actually going to run and take their chance? Like the one I had my eye on for a long time, it was Gentleman's Game, but I can't see him running this off on Chase Mark. I think most of he's probably going to go for the Irish National. And I was going down through them, and I picked out one at a massive price, and this is going to take a lot of faith now. A lot of luck, but the one I like was I just thought at a huge price was Bear Gills, Nicky Martin's horse. Now he has not set the world alight at all in any shape or form chasing, but if you go back to his novice season and even his bumper, like he was a very, very good novice hurdler. He was undefeated going into Cheltenham, and he ran in the Ballymore behind Bob Wallinger, which was probably the wrong race from. He does need a bit of cut in the ground, but even that, they know he was only half a length behind Brave Man's Game, and he was 7.5 lengths behind Gaillard de Menil. Now, as I said, he had a long break after that. He went wrong. He was injured, but Nicky Martin has always said that this is a really good horse. His only entry at the Cheltenham Festival is in this race. Now he's 140.0 at the moment. You'll be getting 100 to 1 in the books if you want to back him each way. Like if just the kind of angle is that if he turns up on the day, if there's only 7 or 8 horses, he's more than likely going to run here. He will probably be a bit shorter than that, and if he wouldn't blow up, he might run into a place. But again, as I said, no, you're going to need a lot of things to go right for that to happen.
I love when Deasy starts a case with it. Now you're going to have a lot of faith in this. And but look, you can't argue with the price being put up. And Matt, it is the sort of idea that you touched on. You've got to try and find a horse lurker in the market there. The one you were kind of looking on is Thunder Rock, perhaps, as a one. If he does run here, could be an option.
Yeah, the Dipper form's worth a mention because it's one of the best trials for this. These days it's run at Cheltenham on New Year's Day over an extended 2.5 on the new course. Horses from the Dipper are 5 from 13 this century, over 400% profit, having finished F3 to F1 in the Dipper. And watching it live, I was really taken with the real whacker. Jumped superbly, winning pretty much unchallenged. But re-watching the race a couple of times, I'm starting to wonder if he might actually be better at shorter. It's easy to label young horses, and because he ran over 3 miles as a novice hurdler last season, many have him down as a thorough stayer. But I thought he was much better in the Dipper than over an extended 3 miles at Cheltenham's November meeting. Yeah, the attacking way he jumps and travels takes a lot out of a horse. I wonder whether he might be better at shorter trips. I don't think he's going to run in the Turners. If we'd done the preview 2 or 3 weeks ago, he might have been the tip, but he's shortened up and I've called on him a bit. But in the Dipper, I'm convinced Thunder Rock is the opposite. He's crying out for a step up to 3 miles. Didn't jump well enough in the first part of the Dipper, but even allowing for that, he got outpaced coming down the hill. You might have had him booked for last of the 5 at that point, but he powered home, jumping well at the business end, going down by only 3.5 lengths. Same story in the Scilly Isles when he was 5.5 lengths third to Jerry Colomb. Didn't get into a rhythm, doing his best work late on. In the Broadway, he just had a better chance of getting into a rhythm, going a stride slower. Looked to have stamina reserves he's not been able to fully utilise so far over fences. But if he lines up in the sort of small field, I can see him being about 10, 12.0. So far, connections have seen him as a speed horse. They were toying with running him in the Wayward Lad rather than the Dipper. So it's a watching brief at this point, as he's probably odds on not to run. But he's one I could see myself backing if Ollie gives the go-ahead.
Yeah, he's another interesting, fascinating runner. And we've spoken a lot about Thunder Rock with Ollie on our bite-sized videos each week. So do check that out in your podcast feeds now. DC, final word to you, just any horses we haven't mentioned. The Devil's Coachman was one you were kind of half looking at, but I guess he needs a soft, maybe even heavy ground.
Yeah, as Matt said, he's going to need it heavy. It turned out heavy last year. It's a tough race to have a strong view on this far out, and the other ones. The only reason I kind of picked it was because I was so strong on Jerry Colomb, and the rest of them I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see who turns up in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, do check out the Horse Racing Podcast. We'll be back Friday morning. Tom Stanley and the gang. Do check that out. Do comment to get a chance to win a £25 free bet on the YouTube video. Myself, Matt and DC will be back next Monday to tackle another race in the Cheltenham Ante-Post markets. It's 5 weeks to go today. Bye-bye.